Okay, great. Here we are again. Thank you, Brian, so much for hanging in there. I know it's been a long day for you. Um, so I really appreciate your service to us, your sacrifice, and your servant's heart. And we want to get in now to session 7 on preventing conflict, talking about crucial conversations, such an important topic. So I'll just give it right over to you again, and let you share with us, okay? When you're unmuted.
Bam, there we go.
Great.
Awesome. I'm so excited to be here. And I am believing that this seminar, these classes, this course is going to benefit you, and you will prosper in your relationships, and you will even be preemptive in resolving conflict before it happens, in Jesus' name. So I want to just talk a little bit more about that in this last bonus session. We want to focus on crucial conversations a little bit more, and give you some more clarity on that. And what we're talking about with a crucial conversation, I actually want to give a few more thoughts before I just finish out with crucial conversations. But crucial conversations are intense conversations where you have to believe for a win-win solution. And it's not acceptable to have a winner and a loser, but you have to believe for a win, and the stakes are high. We're going to go into that here in just a little bit. But first of all, I want to talk about two things first that I think you're going to find very helpful, especially in this area of preventing conflict before it happens. Excuse me, let me grab a drink here. The first thing is, I want you to be aware of the prophetic personality, and I mean, not in a bad way, but in a good way. Like, watch out for the prophetic personality. They're anyway seeking whom they may devour. No, not at all. But the prophetic personality is that person that has a strong sense of injustice. So it doesn't mean that they prophesy necessarily, or that they're a prophet. It could be, but that one of the things that we end up seeing, one of the areas that we end up seeing conflict is you, that person with a prophetic personality, or me, or that other person in your midst who has that prophetic personality. They just see black and white. They see off and on and nothing in between. And also they're very tuned into a sense of injustice. And I have a scripture here in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 16 and 17, because this prophetic personality, this gifting, which is very valuable, also can be damaging and lead to a lot of conflict. And I'll give you an example. I realized for myself, one time I was at the beach, our family was at the beach, and we were going to buy an item at a store, and for some reason we ended up buying it. When we went across town and found another store, the same, it was like a sister store, same brand. So I thought, oh, we'll just pick up this item here. So I went to pick it up, and it was like $4 more at this store. And then, like actually just $2 more, just a very small amount at this store than it was at the original store. And it's the same store, just two different branches of the same store. And so I kind of I'm there with my family, we're at the beach, we're on vacation. So I started to say, like, well, that's not right. The price is, such and such over at this store. It should be the same here. Should we go back there and buy it? And, just started giving the clerk a bit of a hard time. I'm like, and then my kids are there watching me, and I'm like, I go through this scenario, and we ended up, kind of not buying the thing. And afterwards, my wife said to me, our kids were watching you when you were kind of going back and forth with that clerk. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it wasn't right, because it should have been the same price here as it was over at the other store. It just wasn't right. And my wife said something like, they were embarrassed, like your kids were embarrassed when they saw you kind of taking this issue up with the clerk. It wasn't the clerk's fault. It was something in management and so forth. And I kind of got it, and I'm like, But then I realized afterward, she just saw it as, a lack of character and maturity and so forth. But I'm the one who afterwards, as I thought about it, the reason it bugged me was the injustice of it. Not the fact, I mean, who cared? It was just $2 difference, but it was the injustice of it that really bugged me. Now I'm just trying to be self-aware. I realized that for myself that I need to be tuned into that. I need to be aware that I can have a strong sense of injustice and unfairness, and that can motivate me to maybe think or act out things in a way that I shouldn't have. And I started to realize that that person, a young person, even a person who is maybe has a prophetic personality, but they're young, they might even not even be Christians or young Christians, that they can really get tainted with this sense of injustice. And they see things that are wrong in the world, or they see children starving in another nation, or they see people being trafficked, or immigration issues. They see these issues of injustice, and it really grabs them. And even a whole generation can be like prophetic in themselves, the whole generation of young people. And so the answer we find in Ecclesiastes chapter 3. The answer is, when there's injustice, it's not our job to correct it. It's God's job to correct it. So Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 16 and 17. And I saw something else under the sun. In the place of judgment, wickedness was there. I thought in my heart, God will bring judgment, both the righteous and the wicked, for there will be a time for every activity and a time for every deed. And so what this scripture says is that there will be a punishment for whatever injustice is going on in the world, but it's not up to us to do that punishment. That's God's responsibility to do the punishing, and not ours. And so when we have that sense of injustice, then we need to take it to the Lord, and we need to see how Jesus dealt with injustice. And he did it all the time. In social issues of his day, and so we need to look to that and point to that and just give it to the Lord. But it was helpful to be aware of that prophetic personality, which can lead to conflict, both if we're that prophetic personality, or if we're discipling or have a friend who has that kind of prophetic personality. You just encourage them. You got to give that to the Lord. You don't punish, God does. Here it says so, and this is how Jesus did. So having said that, that is one way we can be preventive of conflict. The other thing, I think I mentioned a lot of these things here. The other thing I want to mention is avoiding battles that are not your own. A lot of times we can get drawn into conflict. I already mentioned about picking up a secondhand offense. It's not we weren't offended, but our friend was offended. So we got to friend it for them. And now we're codependent trying to fix their problem, which they gave up on months ago, and they're happy and free, but we're still carrying this old offense that they don't even have anymore. And so that's a battle that's not ours, or it could be something else where we're drawn into. The enemy would love to suck us into something that's going to take our time and energy and keep us doing keep us from doing the things that we're really called to do. So that could be it could be somebody who's emotionally dependent, like Donnie was, or somebody who's trying to suck our energy out of us, or it could be something that we're putting our fingers in that really we don't have to put our fingers into. So I'm going to read here from the one I have in your notes, Proverbs 26:17 is this proverb talks about this. It says, like one who grabs a stray dog by the ears is someone who rushes into a quarrel that is not their own. One who grabs a stray dog by the ears is someone who rushes into a quarrel not their own. So we need to be aware, we need to be discerning that what battles we fight. We want to choose our battles. And even my wife and I tried to do that with our kids. There's some things that we don't agree with, but we're going to choose our battles, and we're going to stand for certain things. Other things, well, it wouldn't be our preference, but we're going to stand for them. I mentioned before, when I was on the school board, I didn't want to be the person who's against everything. So there's different things that came across our desk or across our agendas that I don't really like that, but I don't want to be the person who's against everything, the Christian on the board who's against everything. But there was times when I needed to choose my battle and stand, and I have some other testimonies about that. We'll take the time to do that. But when I had to stand, I did, and it brought results. But I wasn't written off because I was a person who was against everything. I was overseeing a pastor one time, and the pastor's was talk about, like, I was talking to him one time. He goes, yeah, I've started to stop and pray at the Masonic Lodge on the way to our church. And every day I go there and pray now on the way to church. I'm like, really? Okay. And so why are you doing that? And he's like, well, it's Masonic. It seems like it should be cast down. And I said, well, I actually read the scripture to him from Proverbs 26. I said, yeah, I don't know if that battle was yours, to deal with the stronghold of a Masonic lodge. It'd probably not just be a pastor, probably not just be a church. It would probably be like all the churches in your community that would be confronting and dealing with that together. Like just you driving by there and throwing a few prayers up on your way to work. I don't know if that's your battle. So, and I think he understood that, and he kind of retracted himself for that. And maybe later they did have a chance to deal with the demonic through other churches in the area. I don't never follow through, but it was about that thing of choosing your battles. And if you don't get in the wrong, well, look at it, just like the verse said here, like if you're going to get in a fight that's not yours, basically it's just saying you're going to get bloody. Like one who grabs a stray dog by the ears is someone who rushes into a quarrel not their own. I think some translations say it a little bit different, like a bloody nose or something like that. Anyway, so I just want to leave that with you too, because that's a way to prevent unneeded conflict that will, again, be a big time waster and so forth. So having said that, now I do want to focus in for the last minutes that we have together on a whole idea of crucial conversations. And this book, this crucial conversations idea comes from a book titled Crucial Conversations. It's by 4 authors. I don't have them here in front of me, but they coined this term, and we are just unpacking it for you. So when we talk about a crucial conversation, listen to this. Our goal is to communicate. So we're not going to avoid them. Our goal is to communicate even negative or difficult messages without creating conflict or destroying trust. Wow, think about that. You can communicate in a way that is, you can communicate even negative or difficult messages, hard to hear messages, without creating conflict or destroying trust. And that's why this becomes such a great preventer of conflict and broken relationships as we start to approach this here. And I already mentioned that kind of at the core of this here, these crucial conversations is when there's a crisis, like we have this kind of fight or flight response, and the adrenaline starts to flow. And so in that time is when we really need to grab our character, or gifts of the Spirit, or, fruit of the Spirit, and the gifts too. But we also need to grab, whatever we were calling emotional intelligence. It's going to take all of that, all of the self-control. We're not going to reach across the table and act out. We're not going to yell. We're not going to do any of those things. We're going to talk about this and have a crucial conversation. And in fact, I've started to, if I'm aware of people that know this and know that I talk about crucial conversations, I'll say, hey, Ron, we need to have a crucial conversation. So that communicates to them that this is not a casual conversation. It's significant. But it's not going to be a negative necessarily. It just means that I have something very important to talk about, and it probably implies that we're seeing things a little bit differently, or seeing things differently. So as we're giving you tools to prosper here, and so the principles we want to follow with having these conversations is we want to be aware that we have a story. We want to know what our story is, and we also want to know, because we want to know that we're telling the facts and not just our story. So we want to know what our story is and what we want from the relationship. So this is in your notes there, the principles that we're going to follow. We want to keep everyone safe. So we want to have them to feel safe so that they can say things very straightforward to us, and we're not going to react. We're not going to get mad. We're not going to, whatever. So we want them to feel safe, and we want to feel safe in this kind of crucial conversation. We want to, as I mentioned, tell the facts, not the story. And you actually want to agree on the facts. Is that how this happened, how this unfolded? And then, and is this the facts that you see? And then other person might say, well, here's something else, one of the other facts. And I'm like, oh, I never even noticed that. Now I know. I was in a crucial conversation with somebody recently, and I said, like, I didn't feel like when you gave that example, like it was really I didn't think it was really right, the example that you gave as we were working through a discussion in a public meeting, and I didn't feel like that was really the right example. I felt like it was. And he goes, well, here's something that he saw, another fact that he saw that I didn't know, that led him to give that example. And then when I heard what he saw, then I'm like, oh, now I see why you used that example. And this happens, if you're going to be, now we're not talking necessarily about leadership, but if you're going to be in leadership, if you're leadership of anything, whether it's the tennis team at high school or college, or whether it's a life group, or whether it's a social club in your community or a hockey cap, you always know things, or whether the pastor of the church, in leadership, you always know things and are privy to information that is not public, that you can't tell to people. So with that comes the inherent experience of you will be misunderstood, because you make decisions based on knowing things that nobody else can know, or a lot of people hearing your decision will not know all the facts that you are including in your decision. So you will be misunderstood because people will not be aware of all the facts that you have as the leader of that organization. Just the way it is. It comes with leadership. And so in this communication, in this conversation, I realized when it became clear when we were just establishing the facts, like, oh, he had facts that I didn't have. When I understood the facts that he had, I realized, like, oh, now I think that was a good example, an understanding, like, but I didn't think it worked before. I didn't think it was good. I thought it was even a little deceptive, and but as I understood the facts that he had, I'm like, no, that was a good example. I'm right. I understand now exactly why you used it. I'm sorry, you're right. I understand now exactly. I'm glad we had this conversation, or I would have just, if we didn't talk about it, I would have been forever thinking he used a poor example. It might have just tainted my opinion of this person. But now I see that it actually improved my opinion of this person, or how I feel about this person. So that was just based on getting the right facts. Ask for and understand the other person's story. So in addition to the facts, it also is good to hear their story. They're going to hear your story, just kind of your side. And so you might hear that person's story, like they reached, that person came in and had a degrading comment to you at staff meeting in front of other people. And, it is what it is. But when you hear their story, that, like, their child was sick or their wife was sick all night long, and they were up with the stomach flu, and they probably slept 1 hour overnight. And, it makes a difference that, yeah, they were not on the top of their game when they showed up at work and had no sleep and overslept or whatever, and they're rushing in the office at the last minute and coming to a meeting. And yeah, it doesn't make it right, but when you hear their story, it helps you to understand. I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I would have done any better. Like, if I would have had no sleep and I got a traffic ticket on the way to the office, and I'm just like, man, I don't know if I would have done any better. And so it helps to hear the other person's story. And then, of course, we already talked about deciding an action going forward. The principle is you have to take action on your crucial conversation, or else wrap it up right there. So just in your notes here, I wasn't sure, and the reason I put the answers right in here because I figured that not everybody would be able to be a part of the bonus session. But what is a crucial conversation? Crucial conversation is a discussion between two or more people where the stakes are high. It's an important discussion. It affects us. It affects other people. Might affect our organization's finances. It might affect a lot of things. It might affect my personal finances, might affect our integrity or our reputation. Stakes are high and the opinions vary. I know already before the crucial conversation that I disagree with this person or they disagree with me. So opinions vary and emotions run strong. So there is a certain amount of passion in the room when you're having a crucial conversation. That's why it's so important to be self-aware, so important to be self-governed, and to use your emotional intelligence, and so that you can ramp that back. And emotions are good. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I was in a board meeting where one guy, a business board meeting where a guy tried to reach across the table and grab the other guy. And, that same chairman, the guy who was going to be grabbed, he said, I love to have passion. I'm not offended. That guy got so mad at me, he tried to come across the table. I like to see sparks in a board meeting, because it means that we have diversity and we have passion here. And I'm not put off by his actions that well. And then actually I had a chance to debrief with the guy who tried to reach across the table afterwards. And he was like, yeah, that wasn't too cool, was it? I'm like, no, you didn't have to do that. I think everybody got your point. And, and he grew from the experience, and he's, it was just good all the way around. We talked about it and so forth. And number 4, the outcome greatly, I already mentioned this, not with the fill in the blank here. The outcome greatly impacts their lives, or the stakeholders, or in the thing. So there's 3 ways of handling crucial conversations. We can avoid them. Nope, we don't want to do that. We can face them and handle them poorly, which is what most of us do, myself included. What happens is the crucial conversations sneak up on us and we're not ready for them. And that's why it's important to sometimes set an appointment and talk about it, like, hey, I don't agree with you. Just tell them that before the meeting. I don't agree with you on this budget. And here, let's get together and talk about it. Maybe there's something I'm not seeing, but I don't agree with you. So I think it's good to put that out ahead of time, but so that we can face them and handle them well. Remember, it's okay to disagree. They don't always have unanimous consent, everybody in favor, but a lot of times we do, and a lot of times that comes out of good discussions. And so they're just to fill in your blanks. Now, here is where we have to motivate ourselves and self-govern. And these 4 questions are how we approach that crucial conversation. Start with the heart and stay focused on what you really want. So what does that mean? What do I really want for me? What do I really want for the other person? What do I really want for the relationship? So those are fill in the blanks there. What do I really want for me? What do I really want for the other person? What do I really want for the relationship? Again, if let's say that's my wife and I, well, I want, what do I want for her, for myself? I want to be heard. Okay, what do I really want for her? I want her to feel valued. What do I really want for the relationship? I want it to last forever until heaven, right? And so that helps me gauge how I'm going into that conversation. But if it's a coworker, if it's even a boss, like, what do I want for this relationship? Well, no, I don't want to get fired, but I want to submit my opposition to the new policy that our organization is in. If I don't agree with it, I don't like it. I mean, I could quit, which would be my my responsibility or my decision to do that. But it certainly is, at least what is my long-term, what do I really want from this relationship? And the last question is, how would I behave if I really wanted these results? So if I want this relationship to last, I want to keep my job, I'm going to go into that crucial conversation with that approach. Like, I'm going to disagree, but I'm not going to be disagreeable. And I'm going to say, I disagree. But if that's the way the organization is going forward, at this point, I'm going to stay involved in the organization. You'll not hear from me. You're not hear me say, I told you so. I'm not going to tell you I told you so. If it doesn't work, I'm on board. If I don't really care about the longevity of the relationship, like I'm thinking maybe I can't go forward with this, what do I really want for this relationship? I want resolution. And so if that means I can't continue with the organization with the new policy that's being instated, then I shouldn't say that I can. I'm like, well, if that's the way this organization is going, I can't be a part of that. And so you're going to get a notice from me. And so again, I want to disagree, but not be disagreeable. Because I always tell my kids, never, ever burn any bridges. Never, even if you're quitting a job, do it respectfully. because guess when you try to get another job, guess who they're going to call? Your last boss. They're going to call their last boss for a reference. So like I just always say, never burn any bridges, because everything in the world functions by relationship. That's why we have to work so hard at having good relationships, and the value of the kingdom is run by relationships. A lot of the community is run by relationships. A lot of the business world is run, political world. It's all happens via relationships. How are bills written in the political world? They're written to compromise two things and come together and bring the best. What is the compromise position? It keeps it balanced and so forth. So all that plays into, because relationships are so important, is you never want to burn a bridge, or because God is so big. It might be 1 year, it might be 5 years, it might be 10 years. It's a very likely he's going to bring that relation back for a connection in the future for something, somehow, in some way. I bet you'll probably end up connecting with them. It's interesting. I talked about being in the political career, and I heard this term that politics creates strange bedfellows. And I never thought, like, oh, that's kind of odd. But then when I was involved in politics, when I was elected to our school board, I'm like, oh, I see all these people who used to hate me now love me. They're in my corner. And I'm like, and then I even agree with some of their positions, which I disagreed with before. I'm like, yeah, it's interesting the way things can turn around and come back and reciprocate and so on and so forth. Enough said. So those are start with the heart, how to stay focused on what you really want as you're entering the crucial conversation. Believe in your heart, what is in your heart. What do I really want for myself in this situation? What do I want for others? What do I want for this relationship? And I already talked about the example of my wife or a spouse, or however it would be. 5 tips are: notice when a conversation turns crucial. You can be in an everyday meeting, and all of a sudden it gets intense, passions start to flow, and you can have a red flag go up and say, okay, I feel myself getting angry. I'm going to go get a cup of coffee, or I just need to walk away, or I need to adjust because this is turning. I know if this turns crucial and I'm not ready for it, I'm going to face it and handle it poorly. That's going to be in the face it and handle it poorly category, which I don't want to do. I want to face it and handle it correctly. So if I'm not ready for it, I don't have the right information, I don't have the right state of mind even, or I'm offended by a comment or something, I'm probably going to try and face it and handle it well on another day or offline. Sometimes we'll be in a meeting with a bunch of people, and we're kind of, me and another person are kind of going back and forth. And I'm like, you know what? This doesn't concern everybody else in this room. Let's you and I talk for 15 minutes afterwards. Just take it off the table, and we're not agreeing, but it doesn't really relate to everybody else in the room. So we're just going to do that offline, and hopefully that'll be beneficial to everybody. Notice when the conversation turns critical, use your best skills, thinking up here, get the blood back from your legs and your upper body to your brain. Call timeout and re-engage with an agreement or an appointment. I said, lead with the observations and questions, not conclusions and emotions. And we want to end the conversation well. So that means following through until it is ended. And that can be agree to disagree, but not be disagreeable in certain situations. And not, again, we want to avoid those things of, we want to say, use our good language. You have different experiences than me, so you probably see this different than me, but I'm not understanding how you see it. Explain more to me why you see this the way you do. So we're using all those introductions, like, man, you're right most of the time, but I don't think you're right this time. Could I explain more? Like, why are you thinking this way? Use all of your skills at that point in this time when you get into that crucial conversation. If you know you're going in to a crucial conversation, pray for courage. It takes courage. Most people hate conflict. Nobody enjoys conflict. I don't like conflict, but I know that it's important to get things done. And so we're going to pray for courage. If I have intercessors, I might call them or text them, say, hey, pray for me. I have to confront an employee, or I have to confront a renter, whatever it is, whatever crucial conversation it is. Remember, our goal is to communicate even negative or difficult messages without creating conflict or destroying trust. And you are a spiritual being, and so you can live as a spiritual being. I have the phrase there, I'm primarily a spiritual being having a human experience. So you can live spirit, soul, body, and yet, and your emotions are somewhere in the middle there. One of the reasons some of you know I'm a big fan of fasting, because it keeps it in that order. Most of us live body, soul, spirit, and the spirit's kind of in the least dominant of order. And that's where having our spirits tuned and some tools available to us that helps us to be successful in relationships. So I hope that you have found this helpful. And I'm really glad that we had the opportunity just to kind of share these final thoughts in this this bonus session, and really, really helpful stuff. At least it helped me, I would say. And not that I'm perfect, I'm learning. I still have disagreements, and I'm learning at getting better at managing them and solving them, and yeah, just coming out with in a way that's builds everybody up and moves the kingdom of God forward. So I think I'm done, David. I'll go back to you.
Great. Thank you so much for Brian for hanging in there to the last session. Really good things. I love what you said. Agree to just you can agree to disagree, but don't be disagreeable about it. And that's a lot of wisdom in that. You don't want to have a guise of humility, but then try to make the other person feel bad after you.
Yep.
So yeah, no, thank you so much. Certainly we can pursue more, read the book on Crucial Conversations, but at least get that concept of what they are, why they're so important, how to prepare. So thank you so much, Brian, for this incredible series on resolving conflict. Really appreciate what you shared with us, and your personal stories. They really have helped us.